is up? RotoGrinders 5:45 on the East Coast, an hour and 15 minutes until lock. This is crunch time. Crunch time at a bit of a different time. You're going to have us give or take till about 6:25, 6:30 East Coast time. I'm not going to go fully up the bell, not going to go fully up the lock, but it's just a two-gamer. And basically, pending on your questions, pending on your interactions with us, that's probably how long we're going to stick around. Of course, tonight is the first night of the NBA Cup, the Emirates Cup, whatever you want to call it. They didn't sponsor the show, but yeah, it is the Emirates Cup. They threw a bunch of blood money at the NBA, and the NBA took it. What's up, Chop? How are things in your world? Two Gamer. I'm hosting Crunch Time, and do you want to say what's up to the chat as well? Kindly hit that like button, do subscribe, do turn on those notifications. Hit the bell, hit everything, hit all the things. Get your questions in the Discord channel. We're going to prioritize that. I know producer Steve, we're both going to keep an eye on YouTube as well. We want to prioritize Discord, rotogrinders.com/Discord, the live stream chat channel. That is a free channel. Anybody just with an RG screen name, does not have to be a paying sub, nothing like that, can go ahead and join those. And basically, most of our Discord channels are free, for the record. But yeah, throw your questions in there. Producer Steve's going to throw them into our private chat, and we'll bring them up on the show. Chop, how are things? Happy Tuesday.
Yeah. How's my camera here? Looking pretty good. All right, let's see here. Yeah, it's Tuesday. It's two gamer. It's a weird week. Just a weird week in general for the NBA, with only one game last night. I don't mind though. It's it doesn't have to be 10 games every night. I don't know, Dean. It's a little bit. It's kind of a weird day, I don't know. Monday Night Football last night. My Cowboys, I liked that they got beat. I want them to lose bad enough to where we can for sure get Mike McCarthy out of town and all that other good stuff. But I didn't want to see them lose. That's one of my favorite players. Overshown's one of my favorite players, man. And I didn't want to see him. And he's out for his career might be over with. That's unfortunate. But I don't want to see that. It's a little weird. And then you got the two games in the NBA. We'll see how that plays out. Should be good games, exciting. I like the cup action. I like the way they're doing it this week. So it's good. And then we got some college football. Keeping my eye on the college football playoffs coming up, and portal opened yesterday, and looking for a lot of activity. Just, interesting. Just all kinds of sports going on all around us.
Yeah, Scott Frost is back at UCF. It's it's very
congratulations.
I don't know if that's good or not. You think that's
good? Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. Like he didn't want to be here, but I guess he went for a bunch more money in Nebraska and stuck there. But
that was his alma mater, man. You got to do that when you get a chance. But he was successful at UCF. I don't see why he won't be successful again.
By the way, did you watch? You probably didn't. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I watched most of the game on the Simpsons telecast last night. It was spectacular. It was like 2 minutes behind, which was the only issue because obviously it's like art. But it was a lot of fun. I had a blast watching it. Maybe that says more about me than anything. But I'm guessing you didn't watch the game cartoon style. But they had a lot of fun with it.
I watched about 2 minutes of it, and I saw how far behind it was. I didn't like that at all, and I just thought it was a little bit corny. So now I turned it off and went with the real broadcast.
I enjoyed it, but yeah, it was. I don't know how big of a Simpsons fan you are either, but and the announcers had a good time with it. Mina Kimes was awesome, just sort of making all sorts of Simpsons references throughout the show. But all right, the people want to hear about the NBA Cup tonight. It is a two-gamer. We got the updated NBA. I shouldn't really say updated. We got the newest injury report. There is no update. Still questionable Jonathan Isaac for Orlando. Nothing new with Milwaukee. We're expecting them to be clean. But Dallas playing the later game, 2.5 hours, of course, after the first game. It is a true doubleheader. Najee Marshall, he's ill, so he's questionable. P.J. Washington, he's ill, so he's questionable. We haven't seen P.J. Washington for, 4 or 5 games? I don't know if it's the same illness or not. I don't know if they were hanging out. I have no clue, but they could be completely independent of each other. But if Najee had what Washington has, he probably doesn't play, but who knows? Which certainly matters. We have an if-then setup also. Tonight, the two-gamer, of course, Orlando, just brutal as far as the injuries. They lost, Bencaro a while ago. Now they lost their second-best player in Franz Wagner. kind of limping into Milwaukee tonight. 215 is the total. They're 8-point dogs against the Bucks. Gary Harris also out for what it's worth, but in Orlando is sort of popping in a lot of stuff just because that's how salary goes, and they're still going to score 100 points, give or take. So like there are some pretty good salary savers theoretically. Running some optimals. I'm getting a lot of Orlando and like cheap nonsense on OKC, like Alex Caruso and Dort, and then like Cole Anthony looks pretty good. Gogo Batase, probably is a little bit too cheap. Cole Anthony, he's got the rainbow, which was kind of surprising. Got the rainbow on the lineup HQ. He seems to be one of the bigger benefactors of the absence of Wagner. You want to give anything overview-wise before we kind of dive in and go game by game? I think on a 2-gamer, you're probably supposed to be a storyteller to some degree, right, with your lineups. I think that's one way you can go. If you want to go this game's going to blow out and this one's going to play tight, and I'm going to play a couple sort of fringy bench guys. This is probably like larger field stuff, but I'm curious how deep you're going here, Chop, as far as telling a story with your lineups tonight, your approach. Clearly, the Dallas OKC game looks better from a fantasy perspective, a total of over 230. Of course, that's a rematch of the playoffs last season where Dallas knocked out OKC 4-2. Vengeance in the heart tonight of OKC. I would imagine they are 4-point favorites tonight. But, anything you want to give big picture before we dive in and, we'll talk Orlando, Milwaukee first. Or a big general strategy for 2-gamers. You could be more ambitious. Raw points tend to matter more as well. What's your thoughts?
Yeah. I think that on such a small slate, I don't know how much storytelling I want to do in the NBA. I mean, I get it for some other sports. In the NBA, you still want to be like, you still want those projections to be your guideline. So, but on a slate like this, you look at who can absolutely, like the last really small slate we had, I think it was Jokic that went for 80 points or something like that.
Just 80?
Like on a big 10-gamer, you can get away with fading that if you hit your other stuff good. You've got lots of opportunities elsewhere to make up for it. On a small gamer, if somebody does that, you cannot make up for it. There's just not enough players out there to do that. So you got to nail the guy who gets the slate-breaking points. And in this case, there's 3 culprits that are most likely to do it. That's Luka, Giannis, and SGA. So you're gonna, I think you have to pick one of those guys at least to start your roster with, and hope you pick right, or whatever. If you're multi-entering, you can do lineups with all 3 of them at different points. But yeah, I think that if one of those guys goes for 70 plus, which is a real possibility in these games, especially that Dallas OKC game, you're not cashing without him. Even Luka, who's the lowest owned guy out of those 3, what the ownership is going to be in the low 30s. The cash lines are 20-25%, which means if he goes for 80 points, more than the cash worthy people, are going to have him on the roster. So you're not even going to cash. So you got to choose wisely right there. You can't fade all 3 of those guys, I don't think. And then from there you build it out. But there's a lot more strategy to me on a 2-gamer than there is on a 10-gamer. But I don't know that I want to go. I guess you could probably stack a little bit just in hopes that one of these games gets to overtime or something like that. But I've never been a big NBA stacker guy.
So, currently on DK, we have Giannis at 46%. His projection is basically equivalent to Luka, 31-32 for Luka, and 52%, like you kind of referenced. You're getting a discount in SGA, just 10K on DK, and half the lineups are going to have him, give or take. And you got to think dollar for dollar, SGA probably the best play. But, certainly, it's okay to play somebody else. And if you're not playing SGA, maybe play some Williams or something like that. How many of Giannis, Luka, SGA are in the winning lineup tonight? Tim is telling us that Isaac is out. That's interesting. That makes the bigs for Orlando look a little bit better. I think we have an if-then set up. He probably was only going to play like 15 minutes or so because he's fragile, long injury history. I think we had an if-then for that one. But, okay, that is good to know. Chop, I was going to have Steve set up a poll as well. I was curious. You think it's 1, 2, or I mean, 3 is really, really hard. I was running lineups at 3, and like you're like 20 points off projection. It's really hard to do. You can, but like how many? 1, 2, or 3 are on the winning lineup tonight? Giannis, Luka, SGA.
My guess would be 2 of them. And I say that for the fact that, let's say SGA is in there. I give him a really good chance in this matchup. And then one of those other guys, maybe it's him and Luka going at it. And so Luka's in there too. Or Giannis just has this massive game, which is very possible. It's Giannis. But also because of the Cole Anthony salary and some of the other salaries, I think, considering it's a 2-game slate, it won't be as hard as some 2-game slates to get both of those guys in there, 2 of those guys in there. So I think 2 because of some of the salary we got and some of the salary that might open up in a little bit if things break our way.
Yeah, and there's some interesting step downs as well, like Suggs and Hartenstein and Kyrie and Lillard. Depending on how as I was put in chat, as the Robins do to the Batmans of Giannis and players like that. Yeah, certainly it'll be interesting to see. I think it's 1 or 2. I don't have a definitive answer, but I think it's 1 or 2. I can't imagine. I would be shocked if it's 3. We do have an if-then set up. We'll pull it up in a second as far as Isaac. But again, I think we had him projected for, I want to say like 15 minutes, right? Is he already out? Yeah, we had him at 17 minutes. Okay. Yeah, he's a good defensive player. They probably would have thrown him on Giannis for however long he could stick in the game. Did we get an update already? No. Okay, update will be coming in soon. But yeah, that's the first game. Orlando, Milwaukee, 215 the total here, Chop. The Bucks are 8-point favorites versus the wounded Magic. Now without Isaac, they still have plenty of bigs, right? So a lot of big bodies they can throw at Giannis. Not a good matchup for scoring points in the paint on Orlando. 2 of the better defensive teams, especially Orlando. Obviously, they're without Banchero and the better Wagner. Looking at their stuff on the season, allowing 3-pointers. They allow the third fewest amount of threes as well. Just a really, really good defensive team overall. Suggs, he gets a bump as far as usage. If we kick off Franz Wagner and Banchero, Gogo Batadze, the biggest bump at 6.2% as far as usage. How many minutes is that? How many minutes we're actually talking about for Gogo Batadze? 51, right? And 1.4 DK fantasy points per minute is wow, that is a big number. He's also handsy, right? He can get in foul trouble, especially with Giannis lurking out there. I had a rule set up, Chop, and you tell me if this is right or wrong, and it may change now that Isaac is out. But I was capping no more than one of Goga and Moritz, Mo Wagner. Do we agree with that rule? And maybe that changes with the absence of Isaac, just because of the slate being so small. But I was thinking they would essentially split the center minutes. Your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that particular rule right now, before the Isaac injury, maybe. Certainly not now. I don't want to cap too much on a 2-game slate. And I think we've even seen, in this recent stretch of games for Mo Wagner. He's been like Gogo can get there too in the same game. Yeah, they kind of take some minutes from each other, but they can both get there. So I don't particularly want to go with too many rules tonight on a 2-gamer, but there's going to be a lot. Cole Anthony, he's projecting 25-ish isn't this massive projection, but just the 2-game slate and his salary is going to make him the most popular guy on the whole slate, I think. And so, in the NBA, you got to eat some chalk. But boy, would you be different if you faded him and you went with another piece from somewhere, and the other piece got there, and Cole Anthony didn't. That would instantly make you a real contender in GPPs right off the bat. So it's a strategy thing you can do. But I've found that in the NBA, you don't want to fade the heavy chalk too much because it's heavy chalk for a reason. So, and people are pretty smart. But there's a lot of pieces on that Orlando side, Anthony Suggs, you mentioned, good mid-range. Goga's got a good price. Wendell Carter becomes more in play now. Who mops up if Orlando gets blown out? That's a good question. We can get hit on that in a minute. I actually earlier in the day I thought KCP was a decent like salary saver guy you could use on a 2-gamer that I wouldn't use on a 10-gamer, but he's in the mix. All those guys are and for the Milwaukee side, it's Giannis like heavy, and the other guys don't do a whole lot for me, but you can certainly make a case on a small slate for a guy like Gary Trent, maybe if you really needed to save the salary. I don't think I'm getting to Dame tonight. Brooke Lopez is obviously he's capable of doing some things, but I would also say that like he's very dependent on his 3-point shooting, and this is probably not the best matchup for him in terms of getting open looks at the 3-point line. So maybe it's more of a Bobby Portis day. Who knows, man? Like I don't know. Yeah. So this game is 2-gamer. You got to have some appeal to both games, and that's where I'm at with these guys.
It is weird. Like Anthony's playing 28, 29 minutes or so last game. And we're sort of pointing to that in some ways as saying like he's the guy that gets a big bump. But like it's a 2-game slate and we're talking about somebody coming off the bench is going to be so popular. I don't know for certain he mops if this game gets full on ugly. He probably doesn't mop. He does some mopping, I would imagine, but not maybe not out there for the last 3 minutes or so. Where do we have him right now as far as ownership? Because we got him at 42%, Suggs at 53%. Like Suggs, we're projecting him for 34 minutes, but I think there's a chance he plays like 37, 38, 39, 40. He has hit foul trouble a couple times this year, but if he can avoid foul trouble, I think Suggs, and again, you're paying for it. The ownership, 53%. The usage has been strong as well. I have the court IQ stuff pulled up. And, 29.35% usage. Not great as far as fantasy points are in it because I think his efficiency has not been great. He's kind of sort of not that kind of guy that sort of can just run the show, but he's sort of going to be asked to run the show because who else is going to do it if not him? I don't know that Cole Anthony's like a for sure. And you talk about, I agree his general thoughts, like, chalk player in basketball usually is chalk for a reason. He's just chalk because, well, he's going to get a few more minutes than expected, that he's projected for. His salary is not fully adjusted to his new scenario, but I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about it. I get that I'm probably going to be playing some. For sure, I'm going to play some. But I don't think it's like the scariest of fades in Cole Anthony is sort of what I'm getting at. I think KCP is like more reliable. Now, does he have the same ceiling? No. But like if you say which guy's going to get me 21 points, more likely than not, it's KCP. And Cole can get 35. KCP probably can't. I don't know. It's an interesting fade that I'm kind of bouncing back and forth on. We did get an update, by the way, as far as our projections. Give Lineup HQ a refresh. See what we have as far as Orlando and their minutes. Yeah, we're giving 34 to Suggs, 33 KCP, Wendell Carter 29, Black 26, so he got a bump. But Bataze 26. Does that mean that Wagner's still only 18, which I don't know. That seems a little low to me. I thought he was one of the better tournament players. Maybe he still is. I mean, you can't play him. Cole Anthony 26, De Silva 25. Just not a good fantasy point guard player. De Silva, it's not something to get excited about this season or pretty much ever. You mentioned the Lopez thing, by the way. I was looking at his game logs, his usage is in the single digits. Some games, 12% last game, 7 and change the previous game, 6 before that, 7 before that. 19, 12, 12, 13, 16, but still like that. And then one of those games, I guess 2 of those games is Middleton came back. Not that he's playing a ton of minutes, but Middleton's taken away to some degree from some of these guys. You want to power rank your Orlando cheapies. So I think like Suggs is somebody you probably want to try to run with either Lillard or Giannis. It's sort of like if you're going to get 40 minutes out of Suggs, you're probably going to get a big Giannis or Lillard game. Is that a reasonable thing to say?
Sure. I mean, you could say that about most of the starters, I guess, or any of the guys who are there in the fourth quarter that close out for these teams when the games are tight. You can look at all those correlations on a 2-gamer and play around with it. I would say that, yes.
I just realized we forgot to congratulate producer Steve on his Mets.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't even mention it. Like, yeah, he's got to be so excited.
And he's
Yeah.
15-year contract.
Well, he's not paying for it. Whatever. He can celebrate. He's not signing checks.
I mean, Uncle Stevie don't care about the money. He's like $1 billion to him is nothing, man. Like it's really nothing.
I guess they're really stingy in Houston, Chop. Kyle Tucker, like they're going to trade Kyle Tucker. Like, what is that?
That's not being what? That's not being stingy. That's just being a smart business model. If somebody's going to offer something really good and you know he's only going to be here for 1 year, you go with that model, man. There's a lot of payroll already tied up. If you really can't afford him,
they can afford him. Come on, they can afford him. They got the money.
It's about who can you afford. It's about who can you afford. Well, I mean, they don't. There's no salary cap in baseball, but there is the aprons that the owners don't want to have to pay the extra money for. Nobody does, really.
Cohen doesn't mind.
We'll see. We'll see how long that lasts. But obviously, some guys mind it a lot less. But they're already the Astros. I mean, I don't know. Listen, I like Kyle Tucker, but if you absolutely can't sign the guy, and it's not even about signing him, Dean. They just don't like to give out contracts for more than 6 or 7 years. That's been a thing with the front office.
Nobody does. Sometimes you have
obviously some people don't mind it at all. But it's just, I think we've seen it's just not technically a really good way to approach your ball club and build it out, is to give out that kind of duration of contract. So unless those guys are really young, and guess what? Kyle Tucker is not that young. So I don't mind it, man. Let's say you're not going to sign Kyle Tucker. Let's say you can get back an outfielder that's a pretty good defender and a pretty decent hitter to replace him for this year, and you're going to rack up some other guys in the process. Maybe it's not a bad move. We'll see how it plays out, but we'll see, man. He might not go anywhere. They might just be saying that. You never know.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, he's not a free agent until end of the season, I believe.
But Juan Soto, good deal for the Mets. They're building it out, man. They're trying to build a powerhouse real quick.
Chop, I ran some more optimals on DK, basically hitting my cap. I have 2 players hitting the cap on Orlando, Cole Anthony and Wendell Carter with his new projection. Yeah, he's fine. 5.2K his projection is 28, 29 fantasy points on DK. Looks pretty good. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, if you want to rank your interest in Orlando guys, because of course that's where people are going to be saving some salary. One of the spots to do it. Can you give me the old power ranking on the Magic?
Well, let's see here. General power from start to bottom, the guys that will end up in my lineup, which I'm actually running one lineup. Let's say the odds of that guy ending up in my lineup, or 150, how many times they would end up. So from start to better being at the top, it would be Cole Anthony, number 1, just because of the price tag you needed. It's going to be tough to get a guy 4,200 or less that's going to project pretty well tonight. Cole Anthony, I say Goga after that. I say Goga, second most likely to end up in my one lineup, then Suggs, then Wendell Carter, then KCP, and a massive drop-off after that. Maybe Mo Wagner gets a little bit of run. But, yeah, De Silva's too timid, and I don't like guys like him, man. He has a skill set, but he's way too timid on the court.
Doesn't
I don't like – although he may – we asked a question was asked earlier about closing out in a blowout if they do get blown out, which is a possibility without a couple of their best players. I think De Silva would close out the game, so that might be a benefit. I think Anthony Black closes out in a blowout. So, you can take that for what it's worth. But
you think De Silva starts and mops?
Yeah. I think I'd have to look at the numbers, but I recollect him doing that before.
I feel like Mo would. I feel pretty good about Mo.
Mo probably too, but I think Black, De Silva, and Mo would be on the floor in the last 3 minutes of a game that's a 25-point game.
All right. And again, I think Wagner was like the sixth guy you mentioned, and I understand why. We're not giving him a ton of minutes, like 18 or so, and he theoretically could get the job done in 18 minutes, but he's my favorite like tournament guy in this Orlando side. As far as Milwaukee, we kind of touched on Giannis in a broader sense, talking about Giannis versus SGA versus Luka. Similarly priced, of course, SGA is a 1K cheaper. How do you feel about Giannis? We mentioned Lillard, of course, as the Robin to Giannis. There's Middleton, who I think last game he had 4 or 5 minute stints exactly. We're projecting 24 minutes now. We touched on Lopez, not a good matchup, not a good 3-point matchup, not a good matchup inside. Not that he's ever really inside. In trying to figure out which of these Bucks is going to hit 3 threes, because like I have no idea amongst Prince or Jackson or Trent or Green. One of them probably hits 3 threes, and all their floors are rough, right? And it's just dependent upon, well, you're going to stay in the game if you keep making your threes. If not, you're going to get booed to the bench, and who knows who's going to do what. And that's how they get there. I don't think we really have to mess with it, is sort of my general thought. As far as the fringe Milwaukee guys, Trent and Prince and Green and Jackson, is that kind of where you're at as well? They're all under 4K, so you can throw darts, but their projections are 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 fantasy points. So you're probably not going to like put them in there if you're hand building. Do you have a favorite amongst that, or just can we ignore that whole group?
Personally, I'm ignoring the whole group. Now, it's GPP and it's 2 games. And so, like, if you want to take a chance that Gary Trent gets hot from the 3-point line and he smashes, then by all means, I'm not going to dissuade you from that. But one of these guys would have to get really hot and, make their shots and do all. So, yeah, I'm ignoring them. I'm ignoring that part of this ball club right here. I'm going to think about Giannis, see if I can squeeze him in. But I definitely want SGA above him. But if I can get them both on there, then I will. After that, I've already said I kind of don't want – I understand Lillard in a GPP on a short slate, but I don't want him tonight. He will not be in my lineup, and the rest of those guys almost certainly. I mean, I would have to be building out and then come down to the last spot and have, I've got 5,600 left over. The highest projecting guy is either Lopez or Portis. Maybe then they slide in there. But they're definitely not – I'm not actively looking to put those guys on my team tonight. None of them.
Middleton still he still seems too expensive. Even if we're giving him 24 minutes, it's hard to say he's going to really get there. Doesn't project very well. And there's a chance when he plays 22. I guess there's a chance he jumps up and plays like 28. I suppose that's possible as well. Portis, I think, is pretty interesting too. But I have nothing else as far as Orlando, Milwaukee. Otherwise, we can move on. Do you want to move on? Before we move on, do want to mention, we want to shout out Splash. If you haven't signed up for Splash Sports, now is the time. The promo code ROTO10. ROTO10 is the promo code. When you play $100 in quick picks, you got another $50 to play with. It's splashsports.com/RotoGrinders homepage. We'll probably go ahead and drop that in the chat, in the description as well. And of course, if you guys want to sign up for RG Premium, all the bells, all the whistles, for a limited time, you get a month, your first month of combo premium football, baseball, basketball, hockey, MMA, PGA. I know baseball's not in season, but, run with it. Everything essentially with the exception of NASCAR. It is, for your first month, $79 and change. That's just $5 more. That's just $5 more than just NBA, if NBA is a la carte. So you can get all the other sports as well. Dallas, OKC, rematch of last year's playoffs. Mavericks knocked OKC out in 6. 230.5 is the total. OKC is a 4-point favorite here at home. No update. They're asking about it in chat. No update, unfortunately, as far as the body parts, the injuries to Dallas. As of right now, we have 2 questionable players. Najee Marshall's questionable, and PJ Washington is questionable. Maxi Kleber's out. Jaden Hardy's out. Dante Exum doesn't matter. As far as OKC, nothing really new here. Of course, Chet Holmgren is still out. Everybody else that's been in is still in. SGA versus Luka. Chop, where do you want to start as far as this game?
I don't know, Dean. Let's go ahead and start with OKC. They seem to be probably one of the most popular teams tonight in general. And, all right, SGA is my favorite player on the slate. I think that, as I said in the survey today, if you didn't get it and you're watching this for free, I'm gonna give you a little piece of it. I just feel like he doesn't get pushed a lot in the regular season. You know, they have a lot of non-competitive games. He defers to his teammates a lot in the regular season. And I think there are certain games where he can take over and he will take over. And this is one of them. It's a big game, you know, it's bigger than an average game. It's a good competitor. So they should keep it close. You look at OKC, they do have a lot of blowouts. Dallas should keep it close. I just think SGA is going to do a lot more scoring tonight, and that's going to makes him one of my favorite players. So I'm on board with SGA. After that, we drop down to Jalen Williams, who's been really good. There's a big price drop, but there's a big projection drop too. So, like I said, I think you need one superstar in your lineup tonight. But I also don't mind just one superstar and then a couple of mid-range guys that we've talked about already, and Jalen Williams, and then figure it out from there. I don't mind that strategy either. Hardenstein has been very good. Love this matchup for him. Dort, I think Dort's going to get some run tonight. Caruso's super cheap. I think there's a pretty good floor on Caruso at only 3,700. I don't think there's much of an upside, but
he might not score is the problem.
But you don't really need him to.
He can get there. Like he can give you 20 fantasy points and no points, but I do want a guy that has the ability to score to some degree. But yeah, he's the thing is, it's not that he's also going to be super heavily owned, which is, again, I don't love him as that kind of player. Like he's not the kind of guy that's going to break the slate, right?
No. I think on a 2-game slate, I'm not worried about, like, you got to make concessions. He's 3,700. He's the cheapest. Yeah. He's the cheapest guy we've mentioned so far that has a real decent floor. Like, I would choose Caruso 99 times out of 100 over AJ Green and some of those other guys we talked about from Milwaukee that we passed on. Sometimes he doesn't score a lot, but he has come back for 2 games now. He's taking seven shots each game. Just make a couple of those, rack up a couple of defensive stats. You know, I think that there's room there for him to pay off $3,700. And then what happens to the rest of your roster is what's going to decide tournaments or not. I don't think he's going to be the reason you don't win a tournament. Then there's Case and Wallace. Any of these guys from 3,900 down for OKC, these guys are all GPP in play. And I actually would prefer picking one of these guys more than any of those Milwaukee guys we talked about, which is Case and Wallace. We talked about Caruso, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, all super cheap, all have some sort of a floor, but not much of a ceiling. But if that's the way the build goes tonight, and you need 1 or 2 cheapies in there, and that gets you the 2 superstars, and the 2 superstars you got to go for 70 and 75 points. That's the build you have to have. Every slate's different, man. There's no, there's no cookie cutter mold for something like this. So that's just the way it is.
Reminder, we're not going all the way up to 7 o'clock, up to the bell. So if you have any questions, if you're trying to figure out, you got a 1v1, a 2v2, that kind of thing, get your question in, throw it in the Discord channel, rotogrinders.com/Discord, live stream chat channel, or maybe we'll get it as well from the YouTube. As you're typing in your question, of course, do hit that like button and subscribe and turn on those notifications. Yeah, I was pulling up OKC as far as their fantasy points per minute stuff, and Isaiah Joe, 0.82, Lou Dort, 0.79, Wallace, 0.74. None of those guys are great usage guys, but they can hit a couple threes, that kind of thing. Dort, a good defensive player historically as well. Usage for Dort, 13%. Again, not a player I love at chalk, but I understand why we're getting it. Caruso, 14% usage. Hartenstein is kind of interesting to me. On the other side, OKC has been better, but they're still giving up the most rebounds per game on the season. The addition of Hartenstein makes them a better rebounding team, but still they've been vulnerable overall on the year. I think another one of those kind of sort of somewhat rules you want to put in. Again, I don't like to have really tight rules on a 2-game slate, but I think pretty clear, right? There's negative correlation between Lively and Gafford. I wouldn't play both of those guys in the same lineup. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Wouldn't play them. I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to run the optimals and see if they even show up in the same lineup, but I definitely wouldn't want to play them in the same lineup. No.
They probably wouldn't, but just in case, I like to sort of plug in. Again, I don't want to make rules too restricting on a 2-gamer, and I'm not running 150. I'm hand building 5 or 6 lineups. I can't remember how many I signed up for, like 30 contests and like splitting it, by dividing it by 5 or dividing it by 6. Luka, talking about Luka, I think I have him. Like, I'm going to have a Luka SGA lineup. Like, that's just going to happen. Inevitably, and I'm going to have to build some cheap pieces around him. We'll see what happens with PJ Washington. Should mention, or if Washington doesn't go, Quentin Grimes would become pretty interesting, a little bit more interesting. He would be projected for 32 minutes. Lively and Gafford still split it in those 48. Dinwiddie is another guy who will at least get 26 minutes. Klay Thompson, who I just think, man, he seems pretty toasty these days. He's just gonna is he gonna make 4 or 5 threes? I guess he can, but not something I feel great about. I think that's how PJ Washington got to OKC last year in the playoffs. I feel like those were like corner threes, and I think Klay is more like top of the key or to the side of. Yeah, I don't want to play Klay is what I'm getting at. But he'll look a little better if PJ's out. Do you want to play Klay?
No, if I can help it, I don't. So I would say that right now I won't be playing Klay unless, like you said, we get to the point where we get some injuries later on at that point, and then he becomes a guy you can play. But no, I don't want to play Klay. I won't be playing Klay. Luka, love Luka, man. Like, I like SGA more because he's a little bit cheaper, but that's the only reason I like SGA more, because as far as fantasy points, Luka should outscore him, could outscore him, has, I think, a higher ceiling than him and a good floor. He's looking good lately. He's back to doing that thing. I think the last time these two teams played was in that playoff series. I don't think they've played this year. And so that's what we got to go by. And in that series, they couldn't stop Luka, man. He was triple doubling, boom, 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 every night. He was 25 plus points every night to go along with those triple doubles. They don't. I know they're a good defensive team, but some guys it doesn't matter. He's just got that kind of a skill set. So I love Luka, man. I'm gonna try to see if I can build a Luka SGA lineup. If I can, that'd be great, because I think Luka has the greatest chance on this slate of going for like 70 plus. It's just that he's a little bit more expensive than SGA. So because of that, I'm not getting to a guy like Kyrie. Might be the downfall, because the Jalen Williams Kyrie kind of game build might be the thing. It's fine. That might be the thing that takes you to GPP promised land tonight. It might not be the superstars. I don't know. I can't predict the future, but I'm not going to get to Kyrie. I do like PJ if he plays. I like him quite a bit for some of the reasons you mentioned. He can sit there in the corner and he can nail those 3-point shots, and that's one of the things you can do against OKC. So I like that one. Lively on the inside. I prefer him over Gafford, and I don't mind the matchup for whoever you want to choose on the inside, Lively or Gafford. Take one of them. I do like the matchup quite a bit, so I don't mind Lively. The rest of it, probably not something I'm getting to. I don't want Klay Thompson, like I said. Najee Marshall, even if he plays, not for me. Spencer Dinwiddie is a hard pass.
I was going through it. I fired up the stat muse, and I was like, I'm curious, like anything stands out as far as Giannis versus Orlando last 5. Basically all his points like between 50 and 60-ish, something like that. Same thing with SGA, same thing with Luka. Nothing really stood out as like one guy was dramatically better. And there's a big chunk of games not too long ago with the playoff series. And PJ Washington, last 5 versus OKC, DK points, 40, 40.5, 31.5, 19, 55. And a lot of 3-point attempts. He made 5 3-pointers in 2 of those 5 games. I think you can't cover everybody. If they're going to close on Luka, double Kyrie, Washington ended up with a lot of open threes, and who knows? And the other thing is I never really know how to gauge this. There's no way of knowing. We have no, we're not privy to the medicals, but how sick is he? Is he going to give it a go and just like, at some point just, conk out in the middle of the second, say, look, I tried, coach, but that's it. I did my best for the guys that really want the 500K, the 12th and 13th, 14th man. But, that's the best I can do. And I kind of assume they're playing, and that's probably unfair. I assume they're playing just because this is a more important game, right? But are they going to play well? Is he really 100%? I have no idea. And what if Washington doesn't go, but the other guy is available? What if Marshall's available? Do we bump him up dramatically? Don't know. I think he becomes more interesting, certainly. If they're both in, Marshall not really interesting. And then also you got to prepare because we're almost definitely not going to have this news in the next 33 minutes, which means, you have one game to figure it out, probably set up some 2v2s, things like that. If we get news that does not go the way you're hoping for. Let's see. Do you not see any questions right now in the Discord channel? I think what it is like a lot of people show up for crunch time right around now, and they just assume 7 o'clock, and maybe the time change can throw things off. But was doing my best to let people know that we're here early and not staying till the bell. Myself and Chop, of course, are going to make our lineups as well. But I do see some questions here to chat. At least I did see a couple in the YouTube chat. Yankees signed Max Fried. I did not see that, Horace. I saw that the Yankees offered a significantly better offer than Boston for Max Fried, but I don't think that actually happened. I think that's just rumors. It might eventually happen, but it hasn't happened just yet.
No, it happened.
Oh, really?
They signed him for 8 years, 214, I think.
Okay, then Underdog MLB is behind because 7 minutes ago just said significantly better. Okay, my bad. I didn't see it. What was the number again, Steve?
No. You misread it, Dean. Yes, Max Fried signed for $218 million.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Underdog was saying that number that he signed for was significantly better than what the Red Sox were trying to get.
Man, that's a lot of money for Max Fried.
That's the fourth highest contract for a pitcher ever. Whew, buddy.
That's
rough for that. Golly, boy, that guy's injury prone too. It's all coming up, producer Steve. The Yankees downfall and the Mets uprising. Crazy. He loves it.
Pitcher. He's a ground ball guy. He keeps the ball in the ballpark. But okay, I guess that was Plan B. Supposedly Bregman was Plan B for the Yankees as well. Seems like he's going to be.
Somebody take Bregman.
Of course, the Astros, they don't want to pay for anybody. They want him to walk out the door as well.
Yeah, you got to be smart, Dean. That guy's on the north side of 30, man, asking for a 7-year contract.
That's, I don't blame him for asking, but I don't want to give him a 7-year deal.
Somebody will.
Probably. At least six. I would imagine so. Let's see. Anything else we want to cover here of note? Who's the player that you're most afraid of not having? You're making one lineup. Can't play everybody. Live in the world with salary cap. Who's the player that's probably not going to make the cut for Chop for whatever reason?
That I'm afraid of?
Yeah.
Right now, I haven't built yet, so I can't say for sure. But right now, it's Jalen Williams from OKC. Like I don't see how that salary falls into my build. And man, yeah, like you said, Kyrie or Jalen Williams, somebody like that could really absolutely bury you tonight if they're the ones who get hot and the two superstars don't do it.
Luke Cage 78's asking favorite spend up, least favorite for DK tournaments. My favorite spend up is probably SGA, and I don't like that that's like the popular answer, but that's still my answer. I think that was your answer as well, Chop. Your favorite spend up SGA?
Yeah.
Least favorite spend up. Who else would be in that? Like I like Suggs, but I probably want to play Suggs with Giannis. Again, I really think he can beat this 34-minute projection. He does foul a lot for a guard, but I think that there's a chance he plays 37, 38, and he's going to be asked to do a lot. So if I play him and he projects well, I want to run it back with at least one of Giannis or Lillard. Kyrie's probably the one I'm afraid of. That's probably the one I'm afraid of not having. And he's also not projecting to be, he's 18% or so. I like Jalen Williams. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but I feel like he shouldn't be 33% owned at 8.7 on DK, but I get it, I suppose. Hartenstein is the one I think Hartenstein's like awesome. I can see him playing 36 minutes here, staying inside against the two bangers on Dallas. He can rack up a double-double and 3 or 4 or 5 stocks. He's a good ball distributor as well. for a big man. But yeah, my main lineup is probably going to be a stack of that game. When I say stack, I'm trying to like maybe at least 3 OKC and at least 2 Dallas, and then and then maybe Mo Wagner. Just kind of hoping the other game is kind of quiet. But again, I haven't done this just yet. I kind of bounce back and forth with some ideas, but nothing official, nothing locked in. Lively or Lopez? Snowfighter wants to know.
For me, Lively for sure. And I'm not saying Lopez. Lopez definitely had his moments this year. He had a great stretch for a while where he was hitting all his 3-pointers. But that stretch has gone cold now. He needs to hit his 3-pointers to be really relevant and to really produce for you for that price tag. And like I mentioned earlier, this is not a good matchup for needing to hit 3-pointers. Orlando's pretty good out there covering the 3.
Not sure if that's Jaime or Jamie Padilla. 2v2 chopper, Bataze and Portis versus Hartenstein and Gary Trent.
I'll always side with more upside, and I think Bataze Portis give you more upside, so that's what I go with.
Joe has what looks like that's a 3v. Is that a 3v3 with the same person at the end of both of them? K. Will, is that Kendrick Williams? Kenrich Williams?
It's the math thing from when you're in elementary school. You cross that one out. It's a 2v2, man.
Yeah. Have you? I didn't know Kenrich Williams because I was surprised that he was somebody. Is he like 3K? He's got to be like 3K, right? 3-2. So Caruso and Mo Wagner versus Howard and Bobby. This has got to be like the rest of your lineup. This is like the 3-star lineup because somebody said in chat earlier, like it's not even possible to do an SGA Giannis Luka. It is, but the rest of your lineup kind of looks like this.
Man, you're really not talking about Jet Howard. I had to Google that. You talking about Jet Howard?
He's a mopper for Orlando.
I mean, I'm just not into like guys that are just projecting for 6 points,
minutes.
man.
14 minutes.
6, and you'd have to have like so the Caruso side easily.
I agree. I don't know who. Oh, Bobby is Bobby Portis, I suppose. Just I didn't know we were on a first name basis. I'm like, who's Bobby? Yeah, Bobby
Gomes.
Bobby Gomes is employed.
Bobby Gomes says he could probably beat Bobby Portis in the game of basketball.
he's very confident. But the referee, the official, I don't know if this is breaking any bylaws. Scott Foster. I don't know if it's the real Scott Foster or not. Isn't he a referee in the NBA? Isn't Scott Foster? He's saying it's a Goga legacy. Is that the guy who hates Chris Paul, Scott Foster?
That's the Chris Paul. Yeah, he just teed up Chris Paul in chat.
Is that the picture of him too? I can't really zoom in on it. I'm not sure. If
that's how you know it's not the real Scott Foster. The real guy wouldn't have his own picture up there.
I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't, unless he's making it so obvious, like it so clearly can't be him, but maybe it is. All right, Chop. We gave the people an hour discussion. Oh, DK tournaments. Can we play SGA, Hartenstein, and Williams all together?
Yes,
I think so.
Yeah, you don't need really too many of those type of rules on a 2-game slate. So yeah, you can play any of that together.
There's no way of predicting it, but if a game goes to overtime, those guys are all going to get 5 extra minutes unless something goofy is going on. And you probably want to have at least 1 or 2 Mavs in that lineup as well. So yeah, for sure, you can play SGA, Hartenstein.
Real quick, Dean.
Yeah.
Real quick before we go, my man says, "What's my favorite prop in the NBA?"
What do you got?
In the NBA, I mean, I'm not like this huge NBA guy, but I do like the under on the Brook Lopez stuff, probably points, assists, rebounds under. But I think it's the college basketball. If you need something to pair it with, Dylan Harper for Rutgers, I like his under on his points, rebound, assists. And I like the over on Lanier and Milicic for Tennessee. One of those guys, maybe both of them. But I like the Harper unders tonight for Rutgers. This is a tough defense he's going to play.
All right. Are you? I guess you're already in the college basketball streets, aren't you? I've not watched a second of it.
Better than in the NBA right now.
I know UCF upset somebody. It was kind of a big deal for UCF. I can't remember who it was.
They're solid, man.
Yeah, no more Taco Fall. The Jordan brothers are not there anymore either, but I guess they have a decent squad these days. Chop, they're asking for a plum play. I know it's a football thing. Give me the basketball version of a plum play. Who you got? Who's your guy who's breaking the slate?
Oh, man. Take a look here. You know what? I don't even know if this guy's in my lineup, but he might. Goga Batazzi. Let's go with Goga. You got to be off the radar a little bit. I just can't give you SGA plum play of the night. I'll go Goga. He's off the radar. I think there's upside there. And
Top bad news. He's not off the radar. He's like 40% owned.
Everybody's 40% owned, man. Like it's a 2-game slate. But SGA, I can't give you the guy who's projected for 60 fantasy points.
Well, I'll give you somebody off the radar. 10%, Mo Wagner.
Oh, man. Okay. Right.
I'm not saying it's going to work, but that's all. I mean, I'm going to have some Mo. I think there's a chance he gets more than 18 minutes. I think there's a chance he mops up. Pretty good fantasy point minute player. Batazzi can get in foul trouble. We've seen it before plenty of times. We've seen it where Batazzi doesn't come back to close. Let's come back.
Listen, Dean, I'm always going to lean with upside, man. Like that's just GPP nature. And I look at guys, and Goga's just one of those guys. Like when he's bad, he's bad. Okay, fine. That lineup is dead. But man, when he's on, which is a pretty decent percentage of the time relative to everybody else, when he's on, he can be part of the core that wins you the GPP. So I don't know. It's a shot.
One more before we go. Lively or Wagner? Moritz Wagner.
I'm going to go with the better game environment there. So I'm going to go Lively.
Yeah, I mean, Lively's the better math play for sure. But I'm just thinking Mo's a way to be a little bit different. He's probably going to be one of my pieces in my OKC Dallas stack. You can't just play all guys from the same game if y'all aren't aware. Chop, it's been fun. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Myself and Chop, we got lineups to make next 20 minutes or so. Go out there, win something. Let us know if you do. I'm pretty sure. I'm not positive. I assume we're back tomorrow night. I don't have any paper to crumble up, but you have been crunched. Bah!